Well, I wasn't planning on making this video today, but here we are. You know, I've been a defender of BookTok for a while now, and I think a big part of the reason for that is there's some things on TikTok in the book space that aren't so great, but I don't really think that's exclusive to TikTok as an app. Really, any social media platform is going to have good content and bad content. The ratios of those might vary a little bit from one app to the next, but generally speaking, it's kind of all the same. And I've had some really positive experiences on TikTok, particularly when it comes to books. But something has been going on recently that I just feel like I had to say something about. And if nothing else, maybe this video will get a lot of views. So if you don't keep up with the BookTok space, there was recently this quite conventionally handsome young Australian man who started a BookTok account specifically talking about fantasy, although I think he's made a little bit of content around romance and romantasy. But either way, you don't see guys that look and sound like him in that space too frequently. So to no one's surprise, his account blew up quite rapidly. I think he's only been making videos for just over a month, and he already has, last I checked, close to 200,000 followers. And at first, everyone was praising this guy. Look at this conventionally handsome, athletic guy who's making videos about books that are maybe possibly more popular with the ladies. That was until he just announced that he recently signed a 2-book deal with Atria, which is an imprint of Simon & Schuster in Australia, and apparently he hasn't even written a single page yet. If you're not familiar with how the publishing industry typically works, particularly if you're going to go get published by one of the big 5 publishers or one of their imprints, you would write a manuscript. After you've become satisfied with that manuscript in its current state, you would shop it around to different agents. Getting an agent supposedly can be quite difficult. I've never gone through the process, so I have no firsthand experience. And then if you get an agent, then they shop it around to different publishers, and then hopefully you get a publishing deal. Now, clearly, if he hasn't written the books yet, he has circumvented this process, and people are very upset about it. I have seen comments about people who have been trying to get published for years, saying that they're going to give up on their career. I've seen people say that they're going to harm themselves because they're so appalled by this happening. But the general consensus is that this guy got a publishing deal because he's a white dude. The thing that really pushed me to make this video was something I saw on TikTok from a creator that had a pretty good sized following talking about this issue and really criticizing the whole situation and the guy himself. And there was hundreds, possibly even thousands of comments in agreement with her critiques. And I'm not going to share who this video was made by because I don't want people to go harass them. But basically, she was saying that she referred to him as a mediocre white man, just another mediocre white man getting a publishing deal, and also said or insinuated that he basically knew he couldn't get published, so he went and faked this personality on social media and only is talking about the books he's talking about because he knows that he would do well in that space and women would flock to him and his account would blow up in a short amount of time. I have a couple problems with this. First of all, to say somebody's mediocre at writing when also the critique of them is that they got a publishing deal for a manuscript that doesn't exist yet, we actually don't know if he's a mediocre writer. I mean, presumably, this guy has written something in his life, I would imagine. He said in multiple videos that he's always wanted to be a writer, so I'm assuming that he probably has written something at some point. No one in the public has read those things, so we really don't know if he's mediocre or not. He certainly could be, but we can't just say that this guy's mediocre because he hasn't shared any of his writing with us. We also don't really know the fine details of this book deal. We know that he has a book deal. We know that he said, I'm looking forward to writing these books, which would imply that he has yet to write them. But we don't know if somebody at the publishing company has actually read something he's written and thought, yeah, this is good enough. We don't know if they were pitched on the idea of the books. They said, that sounds great. We can help you with a ghostwriter or a co-writer. And I'm not saying those things are necessarily right or wrong. I just think that it's weird to call this guy mediocre just because he's white? I don't know. And if you're not referring to his writing being mediocre and you're just saying he's a mediocre human being, like what does that even mean? And is that really a fair assessment that just because this guy landed a pretty sweet publishing deal, it sounds like, that makes him a bad person? Because to be honest, I thought, there's lots of people on social media that have 100,000 plus followers, myself included. No one's throwing me a 2-book deal, and I've actually written a manuscript. So there has to be something more to this story. And turns out, yeah, there is. Not only is this guy just a conventionally attractive dude with a cool accent, but he was already a celebrity before he started his TikTok account. He played professional rugby for about 5 years, I think, in Australia, and he was on the Australian Bachelor. So the dude is literally a TV star. Maybe a C or D list star, but either way, the guy's been on television. So nothing about even a small-time celebrity accruing a few 100,000 followers on social media in a short amount of time should surprise you. And to be perfectly honest here, I actually think the more offensive part of this creator's video was insinuating that this dude doesn't actually like fantasy or romance, that he just took that angle because he knew that he would do well in that space, kind of patronizing women who read those books. This is not a whole lot different from the argument that anti-trans people make, that trans people are going through transitions to compete in women's sports. Like, you would completely upend your whole life and everything about who you are as a person just so you could perform a little bit better in a certain category of high school or collegiate sports. Like, that argument to me is insane. And I understand that, like, pandering to people in a certain genre of books is not on the same scale as being trans. It's obviously not even close. But it's the same idea underpinning this argument, which is that this guy isn't really a fan of romance or fantasy. He's just making that his personality. As if there aren't 1,000 other more lucrative industries or easier ways to go about getting some type of fame or recognition, which this guy already had. Like, if you've played professional sports and been on a television show, you are already more famous than the most famous book talker. You're already more famous than most published authors. Aside from people like Brandon Sanderson, whose books are wildly popular and he's very active on YouTube, or like Stephen King, who's been around forever, you probably wouldn't recognize most authors just walking down the street. So the insinuation that this dude is faking this personality for clout is just wild to me. I think it also highlights that women don't truly understand how toxic male spaces can be. I mean, literally go ask any man who grew up with an interest outside of kind of like traditional sports. If they're into theater, music, reading, video games, board games, whatever, all these activities that are not quote unquote manly. And I can guarantee you that these people have been bullied by other men for having those interests. And we're talking about a guy who played professional rugby, which is a fairly violent sport. So he was probably often around a lot of really manly men and guys who probably didn't read books, period, never mind fantasy. I'm not saying that you should be thrilled that this is how the publishing industry works now, but it's not necessarily this dude's fault. And what do you expect him to do? Is he supposed to turn down this publishing deal and pick some other person from a marginalized community at random to get the deal instead? When publishing companies publish very successful books and make a lot of money on them, it opens up opportunities for other smaller or more niche writers, because now the publishing company has the budget to take risks on those more art-based projects that are based purely on their merit, rather than, we just think this is going to sell. I understand critiquing a system and being frustrated with a flawed system. However, you still have to deal with the reality that you live in that system. So quitting writing because this guy got a publishing deal or harming yourself is just insane to me. I know it's exhausting. I know it's frustrating, but you have to keep doing the things that you want to do with your life, and you have to keep pushing to have these systems change, even if it might not happen in your lifetime. I get messages from authors literally every single day. I mean, sometimes dozens in a single day, asking me to promote their book. And these people are from all different walks of life, all different ethnicities, different belief systems, different countries. It's just hard to sell books these days. That's just the truth of it. I saw that me making a post about a book really wasn't going to get much readership for that author. Even worse, if it's a paid collaboration, if you pay me to review your book, I've never done that, but I've seen other people do it, and audiences are smart. They can sniff that stuff out. They know, okay, this has a sponsorship tag on it. This person was clearly paid to do this review, so they don't take it that seriously. It's a waste of everyone's time and money. And I really wanted to help authors. So I put together this course on how to build a social media audience because, in my opinion, that's the best way to sell books and to get publishing deals, which this guy is clearly proving. I mean, obviously being a celebrity helps, but you think he would have got that deal if he didn't have almost 200,000 followers? Probably not. And you know what? I was surprised when I launched this program to teach people how to do this. Very few authors took me up on this, and it's $15. It's $15 a month. I add content to it every month. You could go through the entire course in probably a day or two, cancel the membership, get all this info for $15. And people, it just seems like authors have this attitude like, oh, I can't do social media. I don't know how to do it, and it's too much work. And I guess my book will just never reach readers, and I'm not good enough. And it's like this pity party. I get it. It sucks. It would be great if you could just be a writer and you didn't have to worry about anything else. But it's never really been like that. And it's not like that now. So you can either complain about how it is and just not get the results you want, or while you're pushing for change, you can also accept the reality that you're in and do the things you need to do to reach your goals. It would be great if you could just DM somebody and they go, yeah, you know what? I'm going to make a video about your book. And they make that video, and next thing you know, you've sold 10,000 copies. But that's just not how it works. And it kills me because I see people sending me these messages, and you can tell that these are just copied and pasted. Sometimes they try to make them a little more personalized, but you know that these people are just sending out dozens, if not hundreds of cold DMs every single week. And it's not easy necessarily because it takes a lot of time, but it is simple. And that's why people do it, because it's kind of the easy way out. Instead of like, okay, unfortunately I have to learn this new skill of how to market myself on social media, they want to just quickly make the problem go away. That's why people offer money, right? It's like, hey, if I can just give somebody $500 and have this problem solved for me, then that sounds great. Let's do that. It doesn't work that way. And that's also why these publishing companies want to work with people who already have a social media following. Because even if the publishing company had the budget and wanted to spend the budget on marketing the hell out of your book, they know that they can never create as much buzz for a book as you could potentially do organically. When you've already built that social media presence, even if it's a few thousand followers, they know that, okay, this person at least understands the basics of social media. They are somewhat marketable on the social media platforms. That is very appealing to a publishing company because so much of the legwork is already done. And one of the comments I get all the time when I talk about this is people saying like, oh, well, this author doesn't have social media or that author doesn't have social media. Yeah, you know what? That person published 10 books from the big 5 publishers before Facebook even existed. So of course they don't need to have social media. They were already famous. I'm sorry that this video turned into a bit of a rant. I just wanted to get that off my chest because I thought it was kind of gross that people were blaming this guy for leveraging his celebrity into achieving one of his goals. I'm not saying the system is fair. I'm not saying the system shouldn't change, but it's not really his fault. And I'll also throw out there that like it's not that big of a deal that people are dragging this dude because he's going to be fine. Like this guy's got a very charmed life. However, let's just focus on things that actually matter. I mean, there's so much crazy shit going on in the world right now that if this is what we're spending our energy on, I think we're pretty cooked.